Okay, everyone, welcome to episode 4 of the Inspire series. Now, sadly, Jen has still got COVID and I've still got a dodgy webcam, but we shall carry on this show regardless. Now, today, because this is quite appropriate, actually, this is about rejection and resilience in rejection and being rejected from your picture books and from publishers and everywhere else. And how do we keep going? Where do we find that inner spark, that inner inspiration to make us go, no, I will actually keep going and I'm going to submit to another publisher, or I'm just going to take this on myself and self-publish. So from my own experience is that when I first started writing and drawing and illustrating and stuff like that, I had no experience in this. I had no idea how the publishing industry worked. So it was pure innocence that put me through. So I just said, oh, well, I've got a crazy idea. I'm going to put it out there. So I approached a whole bunch of publishers and got rejected. And the first rejection letter that came through, I actually went and bought a really cheap bottle of champagne because it's like, I was brave enough to submit. And I think that's one of the things that we all forget is so many people, I've heard of lots of people who are too scared to submit to a publisher for fear of that rejection. And they leave their manuscript in the third drawer down or on the hard drive on their computer and they go, oh, no, I'm not going to see it. No, but if you actually get brave enough to submit, that is worthy of either rejection or whatever it is worth celebrating. So anyway, I ended up getting a publishing deal by the 5th publisher, which was really exciting. So, I'm going to go around the room again. I'm going to get you all your experience, what you've had, and what your insights would be to share with our audience. Okay, I'm going to start off with you, Sarah. Go.
Okay. Wow. So you're talking about rejection resilience,
Yes.
and I don't think you need to have resilience to deal with the rejection. Rejection will help you with your resilience. That's how you become resilient, because in this game, you as a writer will be rejected numerous times. Every time you write a new manuscript, you are starting from scratch. So I have been rejected so many times. I just cannot literally count how many times. And I have to say, you do get broad shoulders. You do. The further you get into the industry, the more you realize this absolutely is just how it is. It's not personal. It doesn't mean you can't write. It just means that time, that moment, that day, that second, for that editor, that publisher, it just wasn't for them. And that can be for then a multitude of reasons. So the more you are rejected, the more your resilience builds. And you do get to a point where, it still hurts, but you understand it more. And for me personally, I don't know everyone else, but I think my hardest one is when they come back and they say, I loved this, I loved it, but it's just kind of wrong timing. I'd rather they just said, I did not like that. Because then you get it and then you're like, okay, that's fine.
So close, so far. Why do you tease me with
Yeah,
all these things? This is
yeah.
terrible.
That is the hardest rejection, I think, when they actually do like it and they're like, but we're gonna have to pass this time. And you just have to keep doing it. Don't throw away those manuscripts. Just go back to them a year later. Just keep, because you'll keep redoing them, and eventually that time will come when it is the right time. But that could be years apart. So just keep writing in the meantime. But the more you're rejected, the more your resilience will build up. So
Yeah, I like that. Because I spoke to an author the other day, and it gave me a massive insight into how they operate. And I think a lot of people are like this. He said that they have literally 30 manuscripts on the go at once, that they just do a broadside of all the publishers and agents. And he's constantly just churning it out. And then, out of 30, one may get picked up or, something like that. And I went, wow, that's a sheer volume. And that's the stats. The more you put out there, the more chances you are of actually hitting that right timing. Oh, this is the right timing for this. This is the right timing for that. This is just what we're looking for. What a great manuscript, yada, yada, yada. So it is actually, from his point of view, it was just sheer volume. And he's so used to being rejected because it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I got another one to go. Another one to go. Another one to go. Michelle, what's your experience been?
Oh goodness. Well,
Where do we
I
start?
am. Woo, I feel like I need to wear a crown, like I am the queen of rejection. It
Not
took
by
me
what it
10
looks on social media, girl, I tell you.
it took me 10 years to get my first book published. I had no idea what I was doing. And this is back in the day where you had to include a reply paid envelope. So I was literally rejecting myself for the first 10 years because I ended up like buying pretty envelopes just so I wouldn't feel so bad, because I go, oh, at least I'm getting rejected in a really pretty pink envelope.
But then you would
So
see that in the
yeah,
mailbox and go, oh, it's
I know, but you had to kind of soften the blow somehow.
yeah.
But because I was making every mistake in the book. So what I like to do now is reduce my chances of rejection, if at all possible, because rejection is not fun. It's not nice. And I think definitely, yes, it is a numbers game, but I started to reduce the rejection that I got when I really started studying the publishers that I was sending my books to, and not necessarily doing not doing oh, you're open to submission, so I'm just going to send you everything I've got, but really look at my manuscript and find a home for it with somebody who's more likely than not going to go, well, actually, this is what we're looking for. So I have dodgy internet and dodgy things tonight. So yes, welcome to my world.
Well, you are in Queensland, aren't you? Or
I know, yes, Queensland. So yes, so I get a little bit fired up by rejection, though. I think it makes me figure out which manuscripts I'm actually really passionate about and that I want to find a home for, and which ones I'm like, you're not ready yet. You've got to go back in a drawer for a bit. So I don't see rejection as a bad thing. I think that every time I've been rejected, I've learned something. And it is hard because, especially for creatives who innately have rejection sensitivity disorder, because they're constantly giving little bits
what was
of
that called
themselves
again?
that
I
they.
wasn't paying attention. What was that? Attention.
What do you mean you weren't paying attention to me, Josh? Goodness me. Rejection, it's called rejection sensitivity disorder, and it's actually a real thing
Is it
that
really?
that a lot of creative peoples and neurodiverse people have, and it's a huge, almost physical reaction or fear of rejection. So it's a real thing that people have, and it stops a lot of people from doing things, especially especially when you are in an industry where it's not like they're just rejecting something that you made, it's who you are and a big part of you, and
This is the
bearing
crucial
your
thing.
soul.
This is what Sarah said. You can't take it personally, and I think you need to reach a point where you can't take it. You've got to separate. There's a bit where you in the creative process of writing it or illustrating or creating it, and then once that's done, you've got to separate yourself and go, now this is part of the business. Now this has got to go out to there. Because I know a lady who wrote those romance vampire fiction-y kind of books and stuff, and she was quite good at it, but she refused to send it to a mainstream publisher, to a traditional publisher, for fear of rejection. So she's now gone down the self-published route, and she's actually doing really, really well with it. But it makes me wonder how much more well she could have gone. That's my best English I'm using tonight. More well she could have gone, if she'd gone down that path. I don't know, but it's just
No,
like
I don't know.
it just broke my heart that
That
she was so sensitive for it. And now there's a
there's so
new
many
group.
different pathways as well.
Oh,
So
exactly. Yeah.
that's the other thing. If you, there's not just one way to do it. So sometimes, and I learned this from Danica Patterson. So we call it doing a Danica. So unless a publisher actually specifically uses the words no, it's not a no, it's a maybe.
I like that.
And she would, like, if there was always just like, oh, it's not the right time or it's not quite what we want, then she would like always go back, and I'm probably giving her secrets, and sorry, Danica, but we called it doing a Danica. So definitely, if you know that something is right for a publisher, and you don't want to be rude or anything like that, but also if they've given you that kind of inkling of it's just not quite what we're looking for, then absolutely, if you've got a relationship and building an email relationship with them, you can email them back. And I have done it myself and saying, thank you so much for giving me that feedback. If I can make a few changes, learn from the feedback that you're giving me, would you be open to me resubmitting? And sometimes it does result in you building a relationship with the publisher and
Yeah, I love that. I love that, because
a
it's
contract.
like, I'm going to give you two quick stories before I switch over to Karen. Is that I had a friend of mine who was fantastic, great novelist, great illustrator as well, actually, and he'd written his first novel and he sent it over to a manuscript assessor, and they came back with, this is great, love it, however you can do this, this, and this, and this. All he saw was the negative. So he had an instant meltdown and went, I can't do this, this is too much. And to show his resilience, gave him 3 hours of feeling those feelings, sitting in that rejection, sitting in all those sort of uncomfortableness, and he went, okay, maybe I can do this. And he went, okay, and he rang me up and he said, okay, I love what she said, I can now do this, this, and this. So that initial like whole the world's collapsed, bit of time, a bit of perspective, and he was able to turn it around and actually come up with a really great manuscript using what the manuscript assessor had actually advised. Okay. So
yeah, definitely. One more thing is to have a rejection routine. So a friend of mine, her rejection routine is she has a pink fluffy blanket. She has her favorite coffee cup and a very special tea that she only drinks when she's got a rejection. And
does it have
her
wine in
like
the tea, or
it may or may not be hard tea. We don't know that for sure.
hard
And
tea? I
then
love that.
and then she has like her favorite like go-to comfort books. And so she has this rejection routine
So
where she
that's
sits in it and
self-care.
acknowledges it. Yeah, absolutely. Feel the feelings, let it go, move on.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that. Karen, what's your experience with rejection? We've got about 2 minutes.
Rejection is tied to credibility, because as a writer, you feel like unless you're published, you're not really a writer. So when you start, first of all, the big thing is being able to write and putting words down, and then getting a manuscript, and then actually working out where to send it. So there's already a lot of hope. And then when you send it, everything, you think, oh, it's taken me all this courage and all this time and I get nothing out of it. And then you have people saying to you, well, when are you going to be published? You know, you've been doing this for years, can't see any books. So it's what you put on yourself. So you've got to learn.
Personal expectation, isn't it?
It is personal expectation. So I had some notes written down, because some people said, oh, the other thing is sometimes they'll say, oh, we already have something similar on our list. And I don't know if you noticed, but ideas are out there, and lots of writers grab the same idea and create the same idea at the same time. So if they get in for you, they'll get accepted. But what I find fascinating is I go and buy the book and see how they tackled the idea. And then I've learned, and I'll go, oh, they've done that better than I would have, or no, I still like what I did, or whatever. But it just gives you more knowledge. Do you know that publishing houses have a list? They have the bigger ones have a marketing team. They may like your story. I had a story that went 2 acquisitions, but sales and marketing didn't think it was strong enough. So it has to be a whole team in a big house that will go yes. Otherwise, it's no. No, what have I got here? No, your publishers. That's what Sarah said as well. When you first start out, you're green and you will go, they're open, and you're not realizing that perhaps that's not a fit. And also you need to accept that your writing style is not going to resonate with everybody, how you write.
And that's an interesting point, isn't it, Karen?
Doesn't resonate.
Because that's part of that research, is going, okay, who's going to appreciate what I'm actually having to offer? Who's going to be the best for my book, baby? I don't want someone who's just going to be general about it or something. Who's that niche that they're actually really focused on as a publisher. And then if you can do that, that's going to do something. I like that. Holly, what about you?
And yeah.
You
Sorry.
know, for me, it's been more around because I actually haven't submitted to any publishers. I
Mhm.
just didn't decide to do that. And I think I will in the future. But I
But
was just
have
thinking
you
about-
shared your work with other people for them to review?
Yes.
And how did
And
that go? How did that feel?
like even like just even getting your editing done. Like
Mm.
that's the first thing that always comes to mind is that first time, especially that you send one out and you're just like, oh, like, yeah, I mean, that is terrifying. And really that's the first thing that people are going to need to do. And, you know, one time I got a lot of feedback and it was a very personal, it was more of a memoir style of writing.
Mm.
And I was so close to the story that it was hard to write it in the first person.
Yeah.
And I didn't even, you know, I was just so thick in the story that I would flip flop. If it was a sensitive part, then I'd go into the third person. And
Wow.
I guess that isn't uncommon.
Mm.
So anyway, but I just loved the feedback. Like I knew I had a real sense for that one, that I was going to have a lot of feedback on it. And I took it, and when I just went, they were excellent with their advice, and I just went through, just followed along, never saw it again. It didn't come back again. Like it was one that had so many edits. I would have thought, okay, this is going to be kind of like a ping pong thing, ping pong match. But no, after, like, I just got it that one time and I just changed it and just like, yep, that's it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it can be so good. I think you do have to kind of go to start with, and then you go, oh, okay, yes, like the
Yeah.
time.
And
taking
it's
some time.
like what Michelle was saying. Feel the feelings, acknowledge the feelings, and then go, okay, right, what can I do with this? And I think that's the resilience that creatives need to have, is that taking the personal out of it when you've actually sending it off somewhere, whether it's for a review, manuscript assessment, or to a publisher. You've got to go, okay, this is the business part of it now. I need to come back. When it comes back, I need to then take that mental sort of framework and go, okay, well, look, let's treat this as an experiment as opposed to so personal. And it's like, oh, I'm devastated. I'm never going to write ever again. I was like, I've seen that so many times. And then I've seen them a day later go, oh, okay, what are we going to do now? Okay, great. Get on with it.
I think every writer should be rejected, should feel that rejection. Because I was thinking, you know, listen to our stories, listen to what we've all gone through and what we've all learned. And I don't know about anyone else, but when we go to these author events, because when you eventually do get published, you know, that's what you're going to have to do. And people want to listen to the writer, because in this world, we all face rejection in different forms, you know, and you've got these young children sitting there. Can you imagine if that question that's always asked, you know, how do you deal with rejection? If as a writer, we just said, well, I've never been rejected.
Yeah, it wouldn't be real,
You know,
would it?
whereas we can all say as writers, yeah, I have, and this is what we do, and this is how we feel, and this is how we got through it. It's part of our story as a writer. So I think everybody should go through rejection as a writer, because I think you honestly, and it sounds naff, but you really do learn a lot and grow. So we should all be rejected. So put in those manuscripts today, get a rejection and rejoice.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think one of the other things is to talk openly about the rejections, because you look at famous people or people who appear to be really well and having books out. They've been rejected countless times. They have been to book signings where no one's turned up or only 5 people have turned up. There's all that side of it that we as writers and authors don't talk about as much. And people who are getting into the industry, or people who are, you know, watching this going, I've really got to want to write a book. What's it going to be like? Well, it's going to get ugly, but you're going to learn so much and you're going to be so proud of yourself for doing that and for moving through that and getting something out there in the world, because we've all got something to say.
Yeah,
Yes.
On
absolutely.
that note, I'm going to wrap it up before I run out of time and all that. So thank you all so much for your insights and your wisdom. That was week 4 of the Inspire series. Hopefully Jen's going to be back for the next one and she'll be fighting fit and all well and all that sort of stuff. So thank you so much. I'll see you all later.